I'm Alex,
And I'm Teddy.
And I'm Spencer.
and we are
The Button
Mappers.
Mappers.
Hey, the Button Mappers.
Hey guys, it's Spencer from the Button Mappers, and we also have.
Hey guys, I'm Alex, and I played a Dragon Quest Heroes because I like Muso games. My Alex impression is not good. I'm
Yes.
Teddy. Okay, I don't know. Maybe the audio listeners, maybe I fooled you.
Could I take a
But-
crack at it?
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Alex. I like Muso games, so I picked Dragon. That wasn't good either, was it?
Oh no, Alex.
Unfortunately.
Okay, wait.
Okay, go ahead. You got one?
No, I don't think I do. I'm really trying this time.
Okay.
Shit. No, I feel like I'm not good at impersonating Alex. I want to with all of my heart, but I just can't. I'm sorry, Alex.
Well, Alex is irreplaceable, unduplicatable, and unfortunately unable to attend today. Therefore, we decided to pick a concept that he knows very little about and probably doesn't have a lot of interest in talking about, which is Dragon Quest. If you saw the thumbnail, you'd know that.
This is my thumbnail.
If you saw Teddy's well-manicured thumbnail, you'd know that.
You know, my best video on my personal channel has my thumbnail in the thumbnail.
Is it the 3D, the new 2DS one?
I mean, my new 2DS. I just like used a screenshot from the video. My like thumb was in it.
That one is huge, right? Isn't it like 50K or 100K or something?
It's getting up there. It's over 50. I know that much.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah. You know what else is mind blowing?
What?
Everything about us, including the Discord, where you might see some mind blowing conversation. You know, it's just all types of banter, button banter. That's what we call it. We post updates. We engage with Terry in the community, and you know, it's just an overall good time. And also more good times and good slimes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Okay, Slimify.
Slimify, correct. And if you watch this on YouTube, make sure that you're hitting like, you're leaving a comment about how much you love Dragon Quest, and you subscribe and make sure that you ring the bell so that the beautiful sounds of Dragon Quest, especially the theme song, will ring in your heart forever. I swear to
All the things a good schoolboy or schoolgirl would do.
Yes. So let's get started talking about Dragon Quest. I mean, the game took off in the mid 80s over in Japan mostly, but it had a little bit of success out here and then eventually really hit it big a lot later in its career in America. In Japan, though, it's always just been the hugest deal. Teddy, where did you start your Dragon Quest adventure?
Right over here on RPG Archive, your channel. Well, that's not true. We did it. We started a sabbatical for like all the Dragon Quest games maybe 2 years ago. At the end of 2020, you had branched off from your friend channel and then kind of made your own. You talked about RPGs, and so like that's really like that's been a kind of nice project for us. And I feel like for me too, it came out of both of us, something we both wanted to do. For you, it was more re-experiencing Dragon Quest. For me, it was experiencing a lot of the ones I hadn't the first time all the way through. I had dabbled in a lot of them, but not finished. I remember having a Game Boy Color, and you know, I was in the Pokemon craze, and it was fine, and it was fun, and it was impactful. And I remember like getting into Red, Blue, and Yellow, and Gold, Silver. But I remember so much more being wowed by the complexities of Dragon Warrior monsters as like a Pokemon monster taming game. Okay. You would breed monsters together, create a more deep monster, and this is something Pokemon would eventually steal with the egg breeding mechanic. And that's complex in a way I actually don't like IVs and EVs and stuff. But with Dragon Warrior monsters, it was just so much fun. You could put two random freaking monsters together and just end up with like a random slime or puffball or like magic wizard. And it's just so much fun. Throw them in the pot, see what you get, and also like the nicknames and stuff. It was just a simple, fun time. It was charismatic, nostalgic. The music had that classic like 8-bit chip tune to it. Terry, this is Dragon Warrior sermon, but I know you love it. And yeah, I think that's what really got me into the series, got me loving the monsters, got me loving the music. Koichi Sugiyama, he just passed away. That's his name, right? The music guy.
I know you got the last
Anyway,
name close.
oh, okay. I don't know first. Yeah, I can't remember, but he made legendary music as far as I had experienced. I know sometimes you like to clown on the music, say it's a little straightforward and simple, but I kind of like it for what it is. And I think that catchphrase kind of characterizes a lot of the Dragon Quest series, straightforward and simple, but it's also tried and true.
Mhm.
A lot of this is like, not only was this genre pioneering, it was a lot of the best elements of the genre that a lot of future games would borrow formula from. And so for me, the other games that I had played before we started our project, I had Dragon Warrior 3 on the Game Boy Color, which was a remake of the third game, and I was never very good at it. A lot of it is cryptic. I understood why I never finished it. I had played bits of Dragon Quest 4 on the DS. When I had sold all my games, I remember taking the bus out to Pearl Harbor or Wahiwa in Honolulu, or no, Oahu, and I bought like 3 DS games for $10 a pop, and Dragon Quest 4 was one of them, and I wasn't good at that game either. I wasn't like I resented the idea of using strategy guides, so I tried to play as much as I could without looking up a strategy guide, and it didn't take me very far. But I loved what I experienced. I love the story with Ragnar McRyan, partnering up with a heel slime that brought back those like Dragon Warrior monster days, like Terry partnering up with monsters. Another Terry reference. We're gonna be here all day, Terry. And so like I've always had a lot of love for the series for those reasons. And I think later, even before the project, I remember hearing about the 3DS releases. We talked about the 2DS video being super big. Well, that's coincidentally the platform I played most of these games on.
Hmm.
And I was so ecstatic to know about like a remake for Dragon Warrior Monsters and Dragon Quest Monsters, which we never got on the 3DS. And then when I'd seen that was in Japan, when I'd seen there was a Theater Rhythm game, when I'd seen there was a Dragon Quest 7 and Dragon Quest 8 remakes on the 3DS and found out that we weren't getting them, I was just like full steam ahead. We got to get these. I started a petition on change.org to get the Dragon Quest spin-offs, which we never got. It never came to fruition, but we did get Dragon Quest 7. Somebody else had started that petition. That's what kind of inspired me to start mine. And I can't believe Square Enix listened. I'm excited to see what the sales were even like for the 3DS remakes.
Yes.
But felt like that was a great time to kind of be a Dragon Quest fan and kind of be like an activist for the series. And so I feel like I have a lot of stock in it for those reasons.
Mhm.
And in the post RPG archive phase of my Dragon Quest, consumption, I have played or replayed with you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. So more than half of the series, with only Donkers left.
He's still gonna explain to me what that means, but that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's
your history with this series, man. Or you can say
My-
something first.
mine is similar to that, and then opposite in a lot of ways, which is very interesting. So my history actually comes from the same time, or at least same generation of Pokemon Red and Blue was like the biggest thing ever. Me and my brother saved up and got a Game Boy Pocket and then a Pokemon Blue, and we're just going crazy with it. And then I guess at some point he was like I would like something else to play on this thing that we bought because we only play Pokemon on it. And I was like, okay, go ahead. I'm gonna keep playing Pokemon. I don't know what you're doing. And he actually got Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, that combo. He's like, apparently these are pretty good or something. I don't know where he would have figured that out because we didn't have the internet. So I'm not sure where he came to that conclusion. But he did get it. And then, I booted it up once and tried it out. And I was playing Dragon Warrior 1, completely lost, completely confused as to what was going on. My only RPG at the time had been Pokemon. So I had like no point of reference as to what the hell was going on here. Um, I played it more than I thought I would, but never got anywhere close to far in that game. I was bizarre of even where I was because there's no map. There's no like there's nothing really to tell you what you're doing or why or what was going on. So it was pretty lost on me as a kid. So pretty much that shaped my opinion of Dragon Quest pretty much going forward until many, many years later. I was in high school and a game called Final Fantasy 12 was coming out, or at least was announced. And I was raving to my friend, like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited! This is gonna be the best game ever." It wasn't. But this is gonna be the greatest game ever. I'm so pumped. I'm getting everything for it. I'm gonna really. This is gonna shape my stuff because I didn't even have a PS2 when Final Fantasy X came out. I was just gearing up, getting all that stuff ready, and because I was super poor. And he made this comment. He's like, "Well, have you ever tried Dragon Quest? Because 8's coming out and it's gonna be pretty good from everything I hear." I'm like, I think I played the first one, which is so ridiculous in retrospect. But I was like, I played the first one. It was pretty shitty. I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, well, no, the series is pretty renowned over in Japan. I think you should probably give it a chance because it's pretty great. And I was like, yeah, we'll see. It was one of those like throwaway things, like, you don't know what you're talking about, but I'll just humor you and say, okay, I'll do it. Never intending to ever play Dragon Quest 8, like whatever. Well, it's Christmas time. Final Fantasy 12 is not out yet, but Dragon Quest 8 had been out for a couple months at least, or half a year, whenever it came out. I don't even remember. We'll find out later in the archive. But I stopped by a Best Buy with we're just doing like Christmas. We got our Christmas money and we're doing a little bit of shopping. And Dragon Quest 8 is there and it's $20 like on sale. And I was like, oh, and then I look at the corner and it goes, also included a demo for Final Fantasy 12. I was like, holy shit. You know what? Maybe I'll get Dragon Quest 8 because that sounds awesome. At least I can try out Final Fantasy 12. Brought it home, played Final Fantasy 12. That game blows. But I was like, well, I guess I'll give Dragon Quest a try. And I booted it up and instantly Level 5's artwork and combined their artwork combined with the just charming designs of Akira Toriyama, like popped into a cell shaded 3D world. It was like walking into a Disney movie, but like you're fighting with swords and shit. It was so beautiful. The music, the sounds, the voice acting, everything just drew me in. I could not stop playing it. I was like, this is incredible. I can't believe like I've been sleeping on this. And I haven't really been sleeping on it. Like it never really came to us. Like I didn't have an NES, so all 4 of those are gone. Didn't come out in America on the Super Nintendo. 6 didn't either. And then 7 came out on the PS1, which I never really had until later. So I was just completely blind to this series. And then 8 just blew me away of how great it was. And it became one of my favorite RPGs ever. Definitely my favorite RPG on the PS2. And I just put in so much time. And then once that happened, I played 4 on the DS. Loved it. And then that blossomed into my Dragon Quest stuff. So I actually didn't even like Dragon Quest for like a decade or something, or a long time. So it's kind of interesting how different our experiences have been growing up with Dragon
I
Quest.
do not understand why I keep playing with a fucking R-Wing back here. I kind of just want to go grab my R-Wing off my shelf. Anyway, no, beautiful story. I'm looking away from the screen. I think we understate too how impactful Dragon Quest 8 on the PS2 really was for the series because that's really coming out of 7 Dragon Warrior games.
Mm-hmm.
So when Level 5 did make that big 3D, world, that was far different than we had seen up to that point. So I mean, if you were to have seen like the most evolved the series had become, it probably was from 1 to 8. 1 is super cryptic. I'm playing it here on the stream, and even on the stream, I could barely figure out what I was doing. I was playing Japanese, but this is the same Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 card. Like I'm playing off the Game Boy Player here.
Oh, okay.
But that's a very interesting start, and I think like you know, having experienced it at the young ages we did, like we developed like an affinity for them in a sense, or like it's always helped like harbored that special place in our hearts. So like going back and like fully experiencing the series and seeing all the creativity and greatness it has and had to offer, and that we didn't get, and that we eventually did get,
Yeah.
has been super exciting.
Well, some people aren't as excited as we are. You know, and I was streaming some, and this makes no sense, but just stick with me. I was streaming some Fire Emblem, and Terry asked, or not asked, but said a weird statement. He said, "I'll never understand why you guys like Dragon Quest." He also included SMT. We're talking about Dragon Quest today. Regardless of how weird that question is coming from a Fire Emblem stream, like what is it that you like about Dragon Quest, or it makes it stand out to you as an RPG?
Yeah, I think this is a good comment because I think it's Terry's probably not the only person that like doesn't get it. I think that when you try and explain your love and affection for Dragon Quest to like modern gamers, they probably just won't get it. And not that Terry is, he's not, but this is like a mentality that a lot of people share. Why do I like Dragon Quest? I think everything feels earned in a Dragon Quest game. Your victories feel earned. Party design feels earned. You know, your play style. You know, every game's a little bit different too. Like they it's almost like watching an evolution of RPGs if you play them sequentially, which is pretty interesting. Not that you have to, you don't. But it's very interesting to see the mechanical upgrades from 1 to 2 to 3, 3 to 4, you know, and then 4 was only on the NES at that point. But there's still so much different. Like I don't think they had party chat on the NES, but like when they brought it to the DS, that one didn't. I did, but the 5, like the core storyline, like that was like the realization of Yuji Hoari's, you know, like um, grand story that he wanted to tell from the very first game. So it's really exciting to see the series kind of like come to fruition as you play it. I like it from a historical perspective, and also just from a like kind of a series centric perspective. And even just within any individual game, there are things that are common to each one. Like I genuinely feel like the game has tough boss battles, yet is very fair. Like it doesn't just hand it to you. I feel like Pokemon sometimes just hands it to you, especially with later entries. It's not something the first entries did. But with the early Dragon Quest games, you know, when you're fighting like the Dragon Lord, or when you're fighting Zoma, or you know, when you're fighting some of these deities and godlike creatures, like you can't, and you know you're fighting with humans, you're fighting with like people, and it really puts that into perspective that you're not going to have a walk in the park with this battle.
Yeah.
So generally across the series, I think that's what I enjoy, and I enjoy how the game frames it within some of these narratives. The earlier games don't do it that great. 9 is kind of an aberration, but I generally think like 4, 5, 7, 8, 11, you know, and I have to see about 6, make me feel compassion towards the story and these characters in this setting, this difficult boss battle setting with charming features, you know, charming monsters, charming characters, funny girls, etc.
Well, I still look at it as a Disney movie, but where I get to play as the characters. And I like how bright it is. There's too many games that they're so dark. Like they're all like I like Final Fantasy. The most popular Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy 7. That game is dark, dreary until it's not, but in general people think about Midgard, and it's just so dark and edgy and dreary and angsty. And that's everything Dragon Quest is not. It's very bright. It's wonderful. Like it's a world you actually want to explore and save and meet people and talk to the villagers. And I like that most of the towns have some kind of story going on with a not I don't know if I want to say moral, but at least a story that wraps up, but like a myth almost. Like it could be in like the Bible or something. Like these little stories that just they're not complicated. Just a couple characters, and one of them's got to learn a lesson somehow, and you'll teach them through your little quest. There's so many little stories like that in Dragon Quest that are so memorable. Dragon Quest 8 had one in particular that like just breaks my heart. 11 has a lot of good ones too, but all of them do. Like 3, I remember, had this before they even really had a lot of strong storytelling. 3 had this story about a woman. Oh, it's been a minute, but just looking for her husband, and he's like lost at sea, and she's so sad that she's literally blocking the ocean, and you have to do yada yada to get to it. That might not be exactly it, but in general, just these really memorable scenes. They're so simple. They're not complicated. It's not the Orwadian army fighting the Kalagalian army, and then there's this. There's not. You don't need 5 hours to explain the story and the backstory. It's so just simple little stories you can really wrap your head around, and I like that. I think Dragon Quest is very simple, but it's to its benefit. I think if you want a just really solid, simple story with simple mechanics that make sense, God, you can't get any better than Dragon Quest.
I do think that simple undersells it, though. Like, and if you just put all of 5 Dragon Quest V's like tragedies, in comparison, like, I think that while they're digestible, it's like some of it is just the level of tragedy is so deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's only you and your father, right? And I mean, some plot spoilers here, I guess. If you want to like experience one of the best narrative experiences in Dragon Quest, I would say, abstain and play Dragon Quest V or skip this segment, whatever. We can go for like 5 minutes in advance. But with Dragon Quest V, like, you witness like the different phases of a boy growing up, watching his father, sacrifice himself to save you and some bratty child who you then end up enslaved, and then like cast away by leaving through the sewer pipes, hiding in a box to wind up on a shore. And he then finds his, brother and mother captive to a demon queen audience. And then like this story of overcoming and triumphing, and then like, repeating cycles. Like, it's just, I think it's really heartfelt.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's
like,
so much.
I don't know if it's that I empathize with the characters, but I see them and I feel for it. Yeah. So like when I know I'm playing a good Dragon Quest, I'm gonna have those tearjerker moments.
Well, and I think it's that simplicity that makes it great, because like Dragon Quest V, I mean, that you can explain the plot very easily. You can just say it's the story of a boy growing into a man and understanding fatherhood. I mean, that's it. If you try to explain the story of Final Fantasy VII, good fucking luck trying to get that across. It's like a guy in Midgard, and he's got an identity crisis. Why? Because of Mako, I guess, or like it's, you get lost and all that. That's not necessary to make a great RPG. What's necessary is the core, is the heart. Like you said, it's just the heart. Like, what is it? It's a boy turning into a man, understanding fatherhood. Boom. That's Dragon Quest. You can sum it up in one sentence, and it's perfect. And I think that there's a quality to that.
I think the only distinction, though, is that, Mario is simple, right? If you're going like, he saves the princess, but it's not developed. Dragon Quest is developed with a lot of those moments and the character development within that simple framework.
Yeah, it's simple
within where you can put your heart into it.
It's simple within the context of an RPG. Obviously, it's
Final Fantasy is convoluted. It's crap.
But like, a lot of JRPGs are convoluted.
I'll scale that back a little bit. But the Final Fantasy VII thing is like super, just like what am I processing right now? Like yeah, that's too much.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest is enough for you to be able to grasp and live within that world. It's that that reality, like putting yourself in the movie.
So many JRPGs just try to be these grand, complicated. Like we did Chrono Cross. God, even try Xenogears, something like that. They're so, and there's not necessarily detriment to it. It's just that that Dragon Quest is toned down, way toned down, where it's you can understand it, and anybody can get into it and like the characters. So I always admire that.
Agreed.
But speaking of people that might not, that might respect a simple story, or at least appreciate something that's a little more understandable, what do you think the best Dragon Quest would be for a newcomer to the series? Maybe a newcomer to the series, or even a newcomer to RPGs in general. Like, what do you think on that?
What is the best Dragon Quest to start? It really depends on the person. Let's say I'm just dealing with like an average gamer,
Mm-hmm.
or like just average consumer of games in the modern era. I genuinely think that they appreciate like more of a visual storytelling piece than more of like a text space.
Okay.
And so I think that they would thrive mostly off of 8 or 11. The hard part for me is just that I haven't finished either of them, but I've put a considerable amount of time into both. I had played 8 on the 3DS for 30 hours and 11 on Switch. I finished the demo and then I kind of just stopped. For a newcomer, 11 is probably the best place to start because you get a good taste of some pretty powerful stories, even within like the first short duration of the game. And it's accessible and it has a lot of the traits that are known and beloved in the series and told within arguably one of the best visual and audio mediums possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can play it. It's also accessible on every modern platform. And so, like, to get you interested in the series, 11 is probably the best place to start. Is it my favorite? Well, that's a different question.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. I think 11 is likely the best place to start. Although I think there's a strong contender for 8, especially on the 3DS, although it's not as popular nowadays. But the Switch, it's hard to argue with playing Dragon Quest 11 on the Switch. It's a given. But yeah, 11 is probably the best. It's the best looking. It's got the most in-depth mechanics. If you've played RPGs before and are looking to get started, I think I might even recommend 5 to be like, okay, let's give you something you probably haven't experienced in an RPG before that's also really charming. And I think 5 might even be a good starting place for an experienced RPG player who's just getting into Dragon Quest.
Sure. I mean, for an RPG player who really appreciates like the story components of an RPG, 5 is one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
It has one of like just the most well-rounded and heartfelt stories of the series
Yeah.
as like a core experience. Let's say you're an RPG player that prefers gameplay over storytelling. You haven't tried a Dragon Quest, but you want a Dragon Quest with good gameplay. Where would you send them?
I think maybe 7, the remake, because it has the most like grindable like the development opportunity. Maybe if you're like an SMT guy, like you really liked digging into the mechanics and digging into all the like, how do I make my character super strong and how do I do all this? I think 7 has the most of that they could enjoy. I don't know. How about you?
I'll throw a monkey wrench here and say, for now, it might be 9.
That's a good point.
9 might be the best gameplay wise because of just the full on character customization, the quests to unlock new character classes, the visibility of your armor, and even just challenges like completing the bestiary or completing quests. I think there's a satisfaction to that in 9. And while the game is flawed in more ways than one, I think generally the gameplay is good. Now, there is a caveat that I think that when the remake comes out for Dragon Quest 3, that may be the best.
I'd be curious what they do with that remake, if they actually like change things or if they keep it the same. If they keep it the same, I think I'd still go with 7. But if they like really revamp that job system and add add a bunch of jobs and add a bunch of stuff, dude, that you're right. That could be number one, and it looks beautiful too. So that doesn't hurt.
That's a plus.
I'm so excited for that. I can't wait for that remake to see what they do with that.
What's the best Dragon Quest to turn off newcomers?
2.
Ever wanting to play another one of the series?
2 might be unplayable if you don't know what you're doing.
I mean, same argument for 10. 10 is
10?
like what you tried it, right?
Well, I think if I didn't have to jump through so many hoops to just turn it on, I might be more apt to it. Although the controls, from what I played, maybe somebody's found a way around this, but the controls are really shit. But maybe it's hard to say with 10. I want to give it a fair shake before I truly condemn it.
That's fine.
But 2 would be very do not if you're new to the series, do not play 2. Just don't. Give it a couple.
I can't see why you would. I don't know who would start the series and be like, yeah, I think I'll start with Dragon Quest 2.
Well, there are people that just to spite you will pick the thing you least recommend. I met people like that who'd be like, you trying to tell me not to do it? I'm gonna do it. It's like, oh my god, all right.
That's like starting up this Game Boy cartridge being like, do I pick Dragon Warrior 1 or Dragon Warrior 2? You know what? I think I'll pick 2 because it's the more recent game. What? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. What do you think is the biggest turnoff game?
It's 2.
2, yeah.
No, it's. I mean, I always get turned off by 6, but I at least make it like 5 hours in. I championed through 2 with you because like I cared, but I couldn't see most people who don't really care doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
2 is a labor of love.
Yeah.
It
was.
It's tough.
It's fun though. I appreciated things about it.
Yeah.
Best Dragon Quest spin-off that you played.
Ooh.
For a newcomer.
Oh, for a newcomer?
Yeah.
Probably the Heroes series. Like that game is just fun and doesn't take a lot. You get a good taste of Dragon Quest with it. Probably Heroes.
Okay. I think I'd go Monsters Joker. I don't know. Great gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, fun monster taming and all that. It's not my favorite in the series, but I think it represents a lot of what the series is about.
Well, yeah, and you can easily be, because Pokemon's so huge still, you could be like, well, if you like Pokemon, you'll really like this. And then there you go. There's a great gateway on
that. Yeah. The Dragon Quest Pokemon pipeline.
Yeah. Well,
just imagining like a link cable, you know, between 2 Game Boys. Like you see like Pikachu become a slime halfway through.
Yeah. What's the ironic part is that the Dragon Quest Monster series is really good and arguably better than Pokemon, although obviously not nearly as successful. But it is better in a lot of ways, and it'd be interesting to compare the 2. Maybe we'll do that maybe we do that on the archive, and then we roll that out.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
By the way, this whole episode is just a commercial for our other channels. So there you go.
Yeah. I did a ranking on Alex's channel, Turbo Zone.
There you go. We got all of them in there.
Check out Alex.
Well, we talked about the best for newcomers. Let's put those people aside. Who likes newcomers anyway? What's the best Dragon Quest? Boom.
What's the best Dragon Quest? You go first.
I'm going to say 8. I think 8 has the best combination of customization versus simplicity that I like from the series. 11 is a little bit much. I dance with that being my favorite, but there's a lot more dialogue and a lot more going on in the story than most Dragon Quest, and I think it might be too much. I think 8 is the perfect amount of toned down, just enjoy the world, enjoy the ride, with characters that are really fucking great. Like every character in Dragon Quest 8, people love. I don't think they're as memorable in 11. Runner up would probably be 5, but I'll save that for you. What about you?
7. The
Really?
remake. Yeah. I don't know why, and I don't remember all the specifics about like the narrative, but they're like it's probably has one of the best symphonic suites,
Mm,
soundtracks to the game. I think that one had the sailboat too, so like there's some oceanic elements about it where it's like all these different islands and all their different stories, and you see them
yeah.
across timelines, and then there is like a major plot twist at some point in the story. Um, Characters are memorable, although there's no voice acting on the 3DS. Like I remember developing some attachment to like a main character, to Ruff, to Kiefer. I can't remember the girl's name,
Maribel.
Tori or something. Maribel, that's it. Yeah. Um, yeah, I was really engaged in Seven for like 3 months. You know, I was I was committed to play that game. And we had done our review on the Itch Network,
Yeah.
which is still watchable. But that was my labor of love because like I was just so invested in it, and it did get to be a lot by hour 90. You know,
I think that game only took
but
me 70 hours. I don't know why people, you know.
it took me a while. But the point that it had taken me until hour 90 to start feeling that okay, I got to get through this is a good thing.
Yeah.
You
No,
know.
yeah. That's always my funny. Like, I find that so funny when people say this. Like, they'll be like, I didn't like this video game. And I'm like, how long did you play it? 100 hours. I'm like, how do you, either you're just super like or is it masochistic? Yeah, masochistic.
Enjoy pain, yeah.
Or you really did enjoy the game. You're just saying nonsense now. Because who plays a game for 100 hours? Just doesn't like it. That's
Well,
crazy.
I think some people may not realize like in the moment why they're playing it. Like they may be doing it for social reasons. Like me, for instance, I can say I did that for Pokemon X
Mm.
and Pokemon Y. I had like over 300 hours logged. I think close to like I don't know, maybe 700. But I was half the time I was playing, I was watching people play on Twitch. And it's like
Oh,
I don't
weird.
know that I really got like the full experience playing it. So at the time I was playing it, but I wasn't into gaming. I was just doing this because it was like a social thing to do. It's one of those weird video game social media crossovers.
Oh,
Tangent. Um,
interesting.
Dragon Quest is just full substance, so you'll know if you like it or if you don't. Within those first 5-10 hours, whatever. And Dragon Quest 7 for me was like, it was heartfelt,
I
and so
think
I'm stoked to play it again.
that is so interesting that 7 is your favorite. That I've never heard anyone say that before. But I do like it. Like the remake is really good and fun.
Yeah, I'm interested to replay it and see how my opinion stacks up, and also to finish 8, also to finish 11. Like those are the big ones I'm looking forward to. 6 is not going to displace that anytime soon. I do appreciate 5 a lot. I hold 5 on a pedestal, but I'm also objective about it. I don't know that it has my favorite gameplay systems. I know it introduced some monster taming elements. I don't necessarily love them. And I the wrap up for the core story is a little sloppy. I think that 80 to 90% of the story is really good. And then I wasn't thrilled about how it ended.
Hmm.
But I can excuse that a little bit. Oh no, I'm not bringing the R wing, am I? What is
It might
this?
eventually come in.
This is a notebook. My Dragon Quest notebook.
Okay. um
Yeah.
okay. A lot of people when they see Dragon Quest, maybe they think of something else. I know Alex is in that category. What maybe you can help me out with this. Do you ever compare Dragon Quest to Dragon Ball? Now obviously they have the same artist, Akira Toriyama. Um like what is the connection there? Do people go from Dragon Ball to Dragon Quest or vice versa? Do you see crossover there?
I see confusion.
I do too.
I,
I see a
I, I
lot.
don't know if I see crossover. Oh, do you mean Dragon Ball? Like that's always the confusion is like if I'm bringing up Dragon Quest in conversation.
Mhm.
But I don't know that many people like are as aware of Dragon Quest, but so many people know about Dragon Ball. Kids nowadays know about Dragon Ball. I don't think they know as much about Dragon Quest. Now, clearly, there is a connection through the artist and Akira Toriyama. If you look at the Dragon Quest heroes, and I think Dragon Quest 11, I think that the producer or developer, one of the two, was Bird Studio, and then I was playing Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is also designed by Bird Studio. So you see a lot of like the similar engines, similar connections, but Dragon Ball is not a Square Enix property or an Enix property as the Dragon Warrior games were. But they had released around the same time. The Dragon Ball was in the 80s, Dragon Quest was in the 80s, and so you kind of seen them come up together. Why? Do people get them so conflicted? I'm not sure. Now, could you say that like narrative wise there are similarities? Yeah, I mean like if you look at Z, Dragon Ball Z as a saga, you have like five like micro stories. You have the Saiyan saga, you have the Frieza saga, Cell saga, Buu saga, and like they each kind of take the Android saga. They each kind of like take up like a major story component. And so in some ways, when we talk about like fables or we talk about character development, you can see some of that as like being similar. But if you're talking about who wrote it, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't think Yuji Horii had anything to do with Dragon Ball. Maybe there's some Toriyama influence there, but that's about the extent of my understanding of how the two connect.
Okay. Because Alex keeps saying Frieza Saga. I don't know what he's
But
talking about.
Yeah, that's a classic mix-up. And you fight the first Keel slime in Dragon Warrior Monsters. Named his character Goku. It looks like Frieza.
Oh, it does?
No.
I don't think so. Even I know that one. But it's interesting because people assume that I would like one. Like I would like both. Like, well, I'm like, oh, I don't like Dragon Ball. They go, well, you like Dragon Quest. It's the same thing. Like as if, I don't know if they say it's the same thing, but it's like the implied that it's the same thing because the artist is the same. Like, well, first off, one is a video game and one is a TV show, so no. But it's I don't know. I just don't like anime itself, so I don't like watching it. And Dragon Quest isn't really an anime. Like it has especially the more modern ones have cutscenes in them that have anime characters in them. But I mean, it's not really an anime. They don't progress like it. They don't have storylines like animes. They might have a similar structure in some ways, but in general, Dragon Quest specifically is very gameplay oriented. So I don't really.
Yeah, I feel
see
like
that.
the mangas and the animes for the Dragon Quest, because there are some, are afterthoughts and are kind of like more like in the Pokemon vein, where it's like trying to sell the product, right?
Yeah.
Trying to sell the Dragon Quest. And it all kind of is game centric. Whereas Dragon Ball, I feel like has always been more anime centric, except maybe now, the games are picking up in popularity. But even those, I feel like, are products that advertise the anime. There is one connection that I forgot, but in Dragon Ball, in the original, somebody mentioned, I think it's Master Roshi mentions Puff Puff.
Mm.
And in Dragon Quest 3, they mention Puff Puff. Or it's like, do you want some Puff Puff?
Yeah.
And when you get it, you end up like in bed with a man in the morning. You told me that. I didn't try it, but in the anime, it's like, yeah, when you squeeze your face in between someone's breasts, it's called Puff Puff.
Yeah.
And everyone's like super raunchy about it, like Oolong and Roshi. They hear that like so and so will give some Puff Puff, and they're like, oh, Puff Puff. And so that's been a running trend and a running joke.
Must be an Akira Toriyama thing. He just loves his Puff
Sure.
Puff. So put that in the game, especially considering 3 barely looks like anything Akira Toriyama would have, except for maybe the cover. He just sat in the game and was like, I need Puff Puff.
Yeah, right. They're like sitting in a boardroom meeting,
Yeah.
and they're like, Toriyama-san, I know you've got a lot on your plate, but we really need you for this Dragon Quest 3, um, video game. Okay, can you sign our contract? Sure, but on one condition.
Yeah.
Gotta have puff puff.
Yeah. Odd choice. All right, let's compare. We don't need to go too in depth in this, but Dragon Quest versus Final Fantasy, obviously the two biggest RPGs, I guess, in the history of video games. Dragon Quest certainly more popular in Japan, but Final Fantasy more of a worldwide phenomenon. I guess if you don't count Pokemon. Pokemon might be up there too, but I just don't see that as a direct RPG. It's almost like its own island of games. So I don't know. In your limited experience with Final Fantasy, how do you compare the two? And obviously,
Yeah,
I'd like to play more with you, by the way. So
I'll make a disclaimer. I'm more interested in Dragon Quest, and Dragon Ball than Final Fantasy. But yeah, my Final Fantasy experience is like the total of like finishing 7, starting 9, getting my save data corrupted, and
oh,
like playing a bit of 13 and 15, and then dropping both of them because they were just dull.
yep.
I think that as full products, I think Dragon Quest represents more of like a historical development of RPGs, whereas Final Fantasy represents more of the blockbuster RPG. And I don't necessarily care as much about the cinematic or blockbuster nature of Final Fantasy as I do Dragon Quest. I think Dragon Quest has proved itself more sustainable and longevity. I don't think that the most okay, Final Fantasy 14 will beg to differ, but I don't think like 13 or 15 captivated people for the right reasons. And I think Dragon Quest has always been like kind of just like like a a pipe dream. It's like when one comes out, there's like this kind of like no way, like we're getting a Dragon Quest, and so I always feel like more warmly towards Dragon Quest games than I do Final Fantasy. I'll start with that.
That is a really good way to sell it. Is blockbuster. I didn't even think about that, but that, yeah, Final Fantasy is like a blockbuster kind of series, whereas Dragon Quest is more meat and potatoes. Um, yeah, Final Fantasy tends to push the envelope and try to offer something new, which is a commendable thing to do for a series. I don't want to sell them short on it, and I don't want to necessarily say one is better than the other. Although I think both of us do prefer Dragon Quest, so take that with what you will. But when Final Fantasy does what it's trying to do and succeeds at it and giving us something new, they do so well. In our Final Fantasy 7, it's like let's take it out of the for a little bit. Let's take it out of the medieval setting and move it to like this dark, gritty city. Which, if you in one of my researches for the archives, I found out that it was actually originally way early on supposed to be New York, which is kind of cool. It's supposed to be like an actual real place, but Midgar is so creative and so cool, and so different that it stood out and became huge, like a worldwide phenomenon. 7 is still so big they're remaking it and remaking different things from it. It's just so popular. So good on them. With 6, they revolutionized storytelling for RPGs. It was incredible. With 4, it was a huge step up too. And then they have the missteps. I mean, I think 8 is a huge misstep. I think 8 is disastrous, but there are people that swear by it. But with 13, my God, that is like that game literally got me out of video games. It was so bad. 15, why do you want 4 guys in a car? Like, why is that the game that you wanted to make? I don't understand that. And some people like it, but in general, you see that when they take risks, sometimes it pays off huge, sometimes it pays off not as well. And Dragon Quest doesn't take as many risks. And you generally know what you're going to get when you get a Dragon Quest game, with very few exceptions. I mean, they might make little changes to the formula, but in general, you're going to get a bright, happy story that ends in darkness that, you persevere at the end. That's Dragon Quest. I don't know if it ever really veers away from that. So it's pretty cut and dry.
For the most part, I think like the best of the series represents the work of an auteur or like an artist. And I don't just mean a Toriyama. I just mean like it's like an art film.
Mhm.
You know, everything's very deliberate and very intentional. There will be no missteps in like a core Dragon Quest storyline. You know, I think everything kind of comes full circle.
Mhm.
You know, when you play Dragon Quest, and with Final Fantasy, it is more of a risk taking adventure. Even 7 is risky in some regards. If you look at the original, I mean, it's just like let's throw every single craziest thing we can into the story and just see what works. And you know, and some of it is heartfelt, you know, and then some of it I don't know. I don't know. I just never bought into Final Fantasy the same way, but it did. Final Fantasy 7 did captivate people in a way that like the likes of Ocarina of Time had. You
Mhm.
know, I remember that debate in school between other kids. Um, Nobody was debating Dragon Quest, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just I think if you have the patience and the ability to withstand a Dragon Quest game, like and one of the good ones, like you're in for a treat.
We should preface this. Neither of us have played that much Final Fantasy, so
Sure, yeah, that's true.
um, I for one would love to play more, and I'm sure will. But for now, I've just played a lot more Dragon Quest, so I can speak to it better. So if you're a Final Fantasy guy and you're seeing this, by all
Yeah.
means, fill out our comment section with your opinion
Oh yeah,
on that.
recommend one. What Final Fantasy should we play? We're like, what are we not talking about? Is 6 that great? Barry?
Yeah, hit us with your best
Thanks.
shot.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about Dragon Quest that have happened in the past, what we think of Dragon Quest as a whole as a series. What about its future? We've seen Dragon Quest 12 get announced. Supposedly it's going to be a little darker than what we're used to. Or they might make some changes to the combat, I've heard. I'm not sure what that even means. What are your opinions on Dragon Quest 12?
It's hard to say. I mean, I did finish the demo for 11, and it's a big adventure, so I'm waiting for the right time to play it. I kind of generally like the combat in Dragon Quest 11. It's a little bit different. Like you kind of alternate between your party members who plays, but you still kind of get this kind of like real time vibe. It's not in real time. And then I love the engine, the like world exploration, and just kind of seeing everything. Um, a darker Dragon Quest game. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, is it darker because the trailer's black? You know, with the logo. Like I
It's
don't
got
get it.
fire on
Uh,
it.
oh, it's got fire. You know,
Yeah.
maybe. It's all speculative. But if the question is, what do I want from Dragon Quest 12? Uh, I think I don't know. There's questions about do I want the combat changed? Not really. You know, I think I generally like the combat systems in the previous games. Do I want a main character that speaks? Because that's been a question, like silent protagonist or not. I think I want silent protagonist, but I want it handled well. I think it always gets tricky once you have voice acting in a game, but it's not impossible to do well. I think it can be done well. Do I want, you know, like elements of monster taming and things like that? I mean, that could be cool. What if we have like, you know, like more, I don't know, like a different style of engagement with like the terrain and monsters and stuff. And I generally I like Monster Tamers, but like, will it be a spin-off? Will it be a guiding game? I don't know. I think I'm just happy to see whatever they come out with, and I'm willing to support it, whatever it is. I don't think it'll be bad. I don't think they'll make any huge missteps. I think generally, like, it's going to be reliable. I know the guys are getting up in their age, and this will be their first one done without Sugiyama. Maybe not their first, but I think he has some people who are under his tutelage. I think Yasunori Mitsuda worked with Sugiyama.
Really?
Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think I'm remembering that from Chrono Cross or something.
Okay. That'd be
Anyways,
interesting.
or Chrono Trigger. That's why it was the Dream Team.
Well, he worked with the Nobuo Uematsu on Chrono Trigger.
Okay. There's a game where I feel like they work together. I could be mistaken. If I am not mistaken, I will let you know in the comments. How do you feel about Dragon Quest 12?
Um, well, for one, this is so nitpicky, but I can't not say it. There was I had one complaint about Dragon Quest 11 in that it's not truly open world. It's actually um it's still it's like instance. So when you go from one area to the next, there's like a loading screen and then you're in like a new part of the world. And it's like a small complaint, but I think it does contribute to the overall feel of the world, that it still doesn't feel like the grand adventure that I want. And after playing Elden Ring, there's no going back for me. I really, really want them to make it like a unified open world. And I think that will add a lot to the feel of just how big the world can be. So I'm hoping that they get that right. I'm assuming they will. Because like in Elden Ring, there's a big tree, just like in 11, there's the tree of Yggdrasil, which is in a lot of the Dragon Quest games. And you always understand your position to it because in the world it's persistent. So you can literally run from one side of part of Elden Ring to the other, and your view of the tree will just shift with that because it's an honest open world. Dragon Quest is not that 11, so I need them to fix that. I need them. Like I'm on the board, just so you know. I'm actually watching you get that flute, I think, in the game behind you. Anyway, it's like 4 paces down, right? Anyway, so that I'm excited for, which I think with the expanded memory, whatever they have, they'll be able to achieve that. Now, as far as a darker game, go for it. As long as it can still be bright and have its moments, I trust that they know what they're doing. Do not touch the combat. like, come on. That's what Dragon Quest is its combat, honestly. Now, you could argue Dragon Quest 11 does change the combat. It's prior Dragon Quest, you selected a command for every person on your team, and then their attacks were based on their agility, combined with a dice roll to determine when they would go as opposed to the enemy would go. Dragon Quest 11 changed it to you pick the person they attack, and then it goes to the next person, which is, I believe, they're all on your team, and then the enemy goes. So it is very different in that way. Honestly, I think you should go back to previous. I think Dragon Quest works best when there is that D&D element of stuff going on behind the scenes that you just have to understand. I don't necessarily think picking each person to attack works best. Definitely don't make it a real-time combat game. If that's what they're talking about with changing the combat, absolutely not. That would be blasphemous and against what I think Dragon Quest stands for. And you have the freaking Heroes series. Just make another Heroes if that's what you want. Yeah.
What if they added online components?
Wonderful. I don't know. Maybe they could improve upon what they tried with 9.
Yeah.
Or maybe something with 10. I have no experience with 10 really, so I'd be curious.
Yeah, I would be curious. Well, okay. So I have several questions. Would you want that from Dragon Quest 11, like to be able to do a quest where you go into like a grotto? I know you don't like that word right now, but like a cave or something with a friend.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. That would be awesome. To experience. I mean, yeah, I had an issue with the grottos. Okay, but it's also me playing the game by myself in 2022. You know, if it was us like trading shit and like having fun with friends and like let's all get together and do a grotto. Hell yeah, dude. I bet you that would be freaking awesome. So I'd be down.
Yeah, and then it could like benefit your main game or your post game in some way. It could be cool. So as long as it works and it's functional. Do you feel like the Dragon Quest 11 needed the main character to have voice acting or like some
No.
kind of voice?
No, not at all. The voice acting thing, that's bizarre to me. I don't know why you need a character. Like people say that like they need their character to have voice acting to like
Or
what?
a voice,
A
like
voice.
a response to like, kind characters.
Does
Like
it
even like the
feel immersed
Persona
or something?
5 protagonist thing or something. I think the thing is like people probably feel like when Eric is talking to you and they'll be like Eric will be like, "Hey, I bet you know what to do in this situation, right?" And he's looking at you and he's just like, "Yeah, that's a great idea." Like I don't know, maybe they feel that is kind of like, insincere.
Hmm. No, I have no issue with that. That's the best games to me have always been no voice acting or no character voices. Like they don't, the main character doesn't have a voice. The silent
I think
protagonist.
in like the 4 and 5 and like the DS era ones, I don't mind as much because they're like I'm kind of forgiving because like it's text based and like I can still kind of immerse myself and feel like the character. But when it feels like they're talking to the guy on screen, like I hear them and I see their lips moving. It's not a thing where I can just turn off voice acting and not see their lips move or something. So I think it is a little more jarring in a modern era.
I don't see it. I've never needed voice act or we're saying voice acting, but really what we're saying is a vocal protagonist. I've always heard it as
Yeah.
silent protagonist.
Yeah. A
Even with voice acting,
protagonist.
I don't know. I just don't. Maybe I'm just so old school in my trained brain that I don't see it. But I guess with voice acting, it does add a weird wrinkle where people are speaking into the darkness. And it's like,
Yeah.
like, hey, where should we go? You're like left, but no words come out. It's just like, okay.
It's not a thing that bothers me with like Ocarina of Time because even though it's in 3D, I'm not hearing other people
Mhm.
talk to me or seeing their lips move. Like Zelda's just like,
Yeah.
it's just like, but that's not the case with Dragon Quest 11. So it's and other Zelda games are fine. I don't have much of a problem with it. Like, I think it's just about like the sincerity of the writing too. Like, are they intentionally like trying to poke fun at this thing or like what is this? And so sometimes it feels weird to me, but.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like I need it. I just need it to be done well, in a tasteful manner.
Yeah. Well, I love Metal Gear Solid, but I certainly wouldn't want that kind of thing to be. It's just, especially well, and also anime games. This is, I guess, a mean thing, a tangent or something, but anime games tend to have pretty bad dialogue for your main character because he usually just repeats things to people. Like, we got to get the seal of the Orichalcum seal. Orichalcum. Like, if that's what you're gonna change the dialogue to, then no, don't even bother because it's dumb anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh, well, regardless, we'll play it. So
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to make any quick notes on the other Dragon Quest games coming out?
I'll be getting the treasure one because I'm a Dragon Quest weeb. So,
I'll be getting it because I'm a hoarder.
yeah.
Because I hoard treasure. No.
Um.
I don't know if I'm that interested in treasures. It looks fine. You can ride monsters.
Canon 11.
Okay.
Well, there's the games that are coming out. Sure, they seem all right. Some of them like I couldn't care less about, but there are just so many games that still need to come out that haven't. Specifically, I'm thinking of Joker's 3, whatever the Redux one was or something. The Ultimate, which is the only one they would release anyway. But yeah, bring us that. Like that stuff needs to come out because like there's a market for it.
Sure. Yeah, I think they're doing a theater rhythm reboot for like Final Fantasy or something. And it's like, where's the Dragon Quest one? We never got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be nice. I still want to play the remake for Terry's Wonderland.
Oh yeah.
I would love that. And a couple of the ones on the Game Boy Advance never came out, like Caravan. That'd be cool. The Rocket Slime. There was a third Rocket Slime or a second Rocket Slime.
Oh yeah. There's like a whole series of those, isn't there? That game was so
Yeah.
good.
That might be the best spinoff. Yeah, that's good. I really liked Rocket Slime. Yeah, any Dragon Quest, I'll play it. I'll buy it, man. For the most part.
All right, that's it for our Dragon Quest, not map out, but discussion. We probably won't map one out on this channel just because they're so big and it's kind of counterintuitive, but we certainly love the series.
We're happy to talk about it. It's a great time for a slime. And also, check out our channels, RPG Archive, Majority, Turbo Zone, and of course the Button Mappers for more great Dragon Quest topical content.
Bye.
Bye, Alex and Terry.
Hey y'all, don't forget to subscribe to them Button Mappers.